People talk about scaling chaos. Well, I had chaos going on and I had that down pretty good. So I figured I would add, 40, 50 employees to it and see what happened. It just became completely overwhelming and unbearable and unnecessary. Like I started to realize like I have all this business, but I have no lifestyle. That was the real calling. That was the real like precipice for saying, okay, I got to do something bigger. I got to scale into something that we can manage and makes us a lot more money and creates a lifestyle that we want to live. And, actually really surrounds myself with a culture and a team that I want to do business with, more importantly. And that's how we got into self-storage. That's how we made the transition.
Welcome to the Threefold Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the podcast where you'll not only learn how you can achieve massive success in multifamily real estate investing, but also how you can simultaneously pursue great relationships with your family and a better walk with God. You can achieve financial freedom through real estate investing without sacrificing the relationships that mean the most to you. Now, here's your host, Lee Yoder.
Welcome back, Threefold listeners. I hope you're having a great week. We've got a great guest today. Joe Evangelisti is joining me from just outside of Philly. Let's welcome him in. He was once known as the flip king of real estate before he discovered the overlooked profits hiding in self-storage industry. He's gone from flipping over 100 homes per year to making 10 times more in profits from only doing 5 to 10 storage deals per year. Really anxious to get into all that. In addition to self-storage investing, Joe is an author, host of his own podcast titled The Legacy Blueprint. He's also the CEO of 2 other 7- and 8-figure businesses. Doing a lot. Welcome to the show, Joe. Really excited to have you on.
Thanks, Lee, for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, a lot to get into there. I definitely want to cover the transition. I made a similar transition, but didn't have, near the success in the business that you had. So you made, a much bigger jump, I would almost say, than I did. But let's table that for a minute. Can you just tell us first, Joe, take us all the way back. How did you get into real estate in the first place? So what got you started? I guess it was flipping homes in the beginning. What got you started there? What were you doing at the time?
Yeah, really. I'll take it way back for a second.
Okay.
I'm really a product of the construction industry, right? So
okay, sure.
When I was growing up, my parents were divorced. My dad had me, half the time. My mom had me half the time. And my dad was a general contractor and a drywall contractor when I was like a little kid. And, he was also the first entrepreneur that I ever encountered. I ever knew, anything about business. He was the first entrepreneur in our family, since my family came over from Italy. So it was awesome growing up in that environment because I just loved construction, right? When I was like 5 years old, I was pushing brooms, swinging hammers. I think by the time I was 10, I could like finish drywall, and do taping. And, I always had that in my blood. Like I actually thought I would grow up and take over my dad's business one day. That was my big goal in life, is becoming a general contractor. Sure. And then I got lucky out of high school. I actually went into the U.S. Navy Seabees, which is the construction battalions in the Navy. A lot of people don't even know what that is. But I say I got lucky because I always had this like calling to want to serve my country, but I also wanted to do construction. And somehow I fell into doing both at the same time. And that was incredible. I got to go all around the world and build stuff in all kinds of types of cool places and some not cool places. And
well, thank you for your service, Joe.
Yeah, appreciate it. It. So
thank you.
After 6 years of that, then I jumped kind of like almost head into to real estate. I got back home in it must have been about 2007. I started flipping houses, which was like this also awesome time to get invested in real estate, right? Because everyone knows in the 07 markets, everything started to soften, and 08 September, everything just took a plunge. So, it taught me how to pivot and course correct though. I never expected to do all the things that I had to do in real estate, but, we immediately pivoted. Instead of selling the properties that we thought we were going to flip, we ended up keeping them, becoming landlords. Okay. And, fast forward 4 or 5 years from that point, and, I wake up and I'm a broker. I'm a house flipper. I have a BPO business. I'm bartending nights and weekends to pay my kids' daycare bill. I was everything to everybody at that time. And, I thought I was on top of the world. And like you had said before we started recording, I thought I was killing it. Like I thought I had tons of money, and I never had tons of money. I never had money in my checking account. I was always like invested in something.
Yeah.
And,
asset rich and cash poor.
Constantly. Yeah. And, scaled that thing into chaos, right? Like a lot of people, you hear people talk about scaling chaos. Well, I had chaos going on and I had that down pretty good. So I figured I would add, 40, 50 employees to it and see what happened. Yeah. And it just became completely overwhelming and unbearable and unnecessary. Like I started to realize like I have all this business, but I have no lifestyle.
Sure.
And so
yeah,
that was the real calling. That was the real like precipice, for saying, okay, I got to do something bigger. I got to scale into something that we can manage, and it makes us a lot more money and creates a lifestyle that we want to live. And, actually really surrounds myself with a culture and a team that I want to do business with, more importantly. And that's how we got into self-storage. That's how we made the transition.
I was talking to another guy has a very similar story to you, Joe. His name's Steve Libman. Doing really well now. He just raises funds to put into syndications like what you guys probably put together. But he had a huge flipping business, and he said, like, make sure you're building the business that you want. Make sure you're building the right business, because you had a bunch of success on paper and financially, I'm sure, but it really wasn't the business, because it wasn't the lifestyle that you wanted. Joe, you do coaching now, and I'm going to assume that's some of the reasoning behind you wanting to do coaching, to help people say, hey, I can help you build a business, but let's make sure you're building the right business. Let's make sure you're building a business that you're going to be happy with, because you had this great business, 40, 50 employees, like all these, flipping all these houses, doing all these things. You got all this great chaos that a lot of people that are starting a business, they're longing for that, but you're at the other end of it going, actually, this isn't what I want.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I really coach from the hell that I went through. Like, I coach from experience. I don't teach anything that's theory or that I read out of a book. I teach stuff that I lived, and it sucked, and I didn't want to do it ever again. And, when I'm talking to people who are either, ideal coaching clients are like going through partnership splits, or they're having a hard time with their relationship with their wife, or they're acquiring things and they don't know exactly what the exit strategy is. And so when people are going through these challenges, I've been through all these challenges. Not that I'm not going through challenges every single day, but for the most part, getting on the back end of that thing and designing a lifestyle and a business that's actually attractive and exciting and fun to do, and, makes me want to get out of bed, and I'm passionate about it. It's a 180 from where I was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, Joe, like why can't you do that with the single family? Why does that, why does it just not work? I mean, I hear this over and over again. I always say, and it's because I'm listening to podcasts, very, very much like yours, I'm sure. And I guess I was just fortunate to be listening to some guys that said, hey, flipping's not investing. It's just a different job. And so I flipped one house and kind of got the message, because we did fine on it. But luckily too, my wife was like, hey, that's not what you told me real estate investing was. She's like, you said like this passive income and this like residual income. She's like, that wasn't what that was. So we did one, and then we're like, all right, we got to get into multifamily. You did a bunch more, you built this business, but why does it not work? Why can't you, have a great lifestyle, or why can't you build a business you want in the single family space like you were trying to do?
Well, I know what I can't, and I'll tell you why I can't, but I'll tell you that the truth is there are people that can. There are people that enjoy the hell out of it. And I lost my passion for it. Honestly, I never even stepped foot in the last 300 flips that we did before we ended up flipping the business and going somewhere else. But I can tell you, for me and my experience, it was because flipping is very transactional, Lee, right? Sure. Like if we were doing 80, 100 a year at the end, and it was every single week, closings got delayed, title came back, the mortgage commitment didn't come through, this, that, and the other thing. And meanwhile, it's massive volume, but it's also split out into all different projects, right? So you got 30 projects going at the same time at any given time. You got bills coming in, you got bills going out, you got money coming in. And it was just so transactional. It was hard to get your hands around, number one, right? So, I mean, we could sell 3 houses, put 500 grand in the bank, and they'd be gone Monday morning, and it was insanity. I mean, our payroll was 100 grand a week. It was just crazy. And so the management aspect of it was nuts, but the bigger piece of it, and that's a big piece of why we made the transition. Right. And there's people that do it and love it, and God bless them. That's fine. Go do it. That's awesome. Sure. It just wasn't me. But the bigger piece that you just hit the nail on the head was we weren't building legacy wealth, right? Like we could make millions of dollars a year and it wouldn't matter if we weren't putting it back into assets that were going to end up feeding our family for generations to come. And that's the difference in the self-storage sector. We were able to create an opportunity where we get paid on the acquisition, we get paid on the development, and then we refinance and we get paid either on the stabilization or we sell the deal. And those deals over the course of time, when we set out to build this portfolio, the goal was to do $2 billion under management in 10 years. And never sell anything. Well, the difference now in the storage business, just in the last 6 to 9 months, is it's getting so attractive to so many people and so competitive on the buy side for the finished product that we're selling 20 to 30% of what we build only because the numbers are insane. They're paying more than our pro forma.
Yeah.
And so, you got to make the smart move. But we're still, let's say you sell one facility, you have 10 in the pipeline, you're still going to have, legacy wealth built
Legacy
over the
wealth,
course
right,
of time.
right.
And it's really hard to do that with single family. And to be honest with you, it's hard to do that in multifamily right now. I mean, you guys are going after a deal and there's 150 LOIs on a project. I call that the red ocean, and I want to swim in the blue ocean. We do deals in storage where we make an offer and we're the only buyer.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's not
I think
the
that's
case.
a big difference.
Yeah. And something else you were saying, Joe, I was just thinking, I had such a small window into this. My partner that I'm working with now, he had we had worked together in the corporate world. He went away. We both left that company. I was kind of building a real estate thing on the side, doing multifamily. He was building a real estate business, buying and selling like vacant land out in Colorado and Arizona and stuff. Same thing as what you were explaining, very transactional. And so when he came back, we partnered up on both businesses. We both gave each other half our business because they were just both really getting started. And we're like, okay, let's help each other build these businesses. After doing the land for a little bit, I was like, dude, I don't want to do this. It was very transactional. And then what I was thinking back to, Joe, that you said is like, in order for it to really work, you have to build this, what I would just say is like a machine. And in order to build that machine, we needed, and this is small scale. You were talking $100,000. For us, it was like, it's $4,000 to $5,000 per month. So just to keep the machine running, we have to bring in $4,000 to $5,000 a month. And then once you get beyond that, you can start making profit. But there's just this machine that you kind of become beholden to. And I mean, your machine, you were really beholden because it's so stinking big. Like, you cannot stop feeding that thing. I mean, you can't stop. I'm sure, and we'll start transition, but like where you're at today, like if you guys stopped buying, you'd have all these assets. You'd have money. You still have money coming in, right?
Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, we that machine was so hard to stop. We ended up quitting cold turkey. Like it was almost like quitting an addiction, right? Like it was either, let's slowly transition, or let's just put the brakes on and start our first deal. And I'll tell you, we left that business with a lot of like phantom debt or unsecured debt because we had a business running and literally paid off everything in our first transaction in self-storage because that's how powerful and the numbers are. That's how much you can control, and that's how valuable these deals are. We can do one self-storage deal closing a year and make more profit than we made doing 100 single family flips. That's crazy. Going back to, I think I'm not ragging on people who do flips. I did it for a decade. But the other thing that I think a lot of a challenge in that business is it's a lot of bull, right? People are saying that they're making 50 grand on a deal. And then, they don't realize that net is they made $8,000, and it's like,
taxes,
you start taking on your overhead, your taxes, you start taking on your trucks and your gas and your labor and your people. And so I think a lot of it is ego driven. For years, it was like, I'm going to flip this house and make 50 grand. I can count on two hands how many times we made more than 50 grand flipping a house. And it's it was a matter of volume instead of quality. In the commercial sector, as it forces you to focus on quality deals because you got to get it right. You got to find a way to make sure it's right. So there's 10 different people making sure that deal makes sense before we go to an investor and we raise money, or before we go to a bank and get financing. I won't be able to get financing. I won't be able to get that money. Right. So I got to do deals that make 1,000% sense, but also make profit for everybody involved. And that's another piece of the legacy wealth.
I love that. What did that transition look like? And I guess too, how did you get turned on to self-storage? You're running 1 million miles a minute in the flipping world. I mean, but obviously it sounds like you're kind of becoming dissatisfied. So probably maybe you're starting looking. Just tell me a little bit about what that looked like for you to really get interested and say, I'm actually going to make a huge pivot here.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I thought the first thing I was going to pivot to scale was multifamily. One of my really good friends is Tim Bratz. He runs probably one of the biggest masterminds in the country, Commercial Empire. I went to one of his events. I sat through it. I said to myself, this is great. Let's go ahead and do multifamily. And then I started making offers and realized, holy crap, this is competitive. And that was 3, 4, 5 years ago. So now it's even worse, obviously. So then I started looking, well, maybe I do retail, maybe I do office. You got to realize this is pre-COVID. So everything was on the table. And I just so happened to get into a conversation with a guy. Somebody turned me on to a now friend and mentor of mine. And the first phone call, we talked for like 2 hours. And he was like, Joe, look, I've done, I built houses in not Manhattan. What's the beach right there near Manhattan?
Long Island?
The Hamptons.
The Hamptons.
He's like, I built $10 million houses in the Hamptons. I built restaurants in Manhattan. I built plan unit tract home communities, hundreds and hundreds of homes in the Carolinas. He said at that time, he was on his 4th storage deal. He said, Joe, when you build your first storage deal, you'll never touch a single family, multifamily, anything with a kitchen and bath again. You'll have somebody build your own house for you. And he's right. It's insane what building a structure, 100,000 square foot building for storage looks like. It's all concrete, steel, and asphalt.
Yeah.
There's 2 toilets in 100,000 square foot. There's 0 kitchen or kitchenettes this big for the, for the office, but like you're not talking about tile and cabinets and counter and cabinetry and paint colors and trim. And, we need to select plumbing fixture, like none of that stuff. Once you design one, I can build that thing in New Jersey, New York, California, Wyoming, you name it, and be successful as long as I find the right site. So once we had that piece buttoned up, now we got the design team, we got the build team, we got the engineers all laid out. It's just easy to go cherry picking sites and find places to put self-storage deals. I think that the second biggest challenge too is for a lot of people, and one of I consider my unique abilities is building great teams. Everybody on my team is way more experienced. One of the first guys we hired was my chief development officer. He built 350 self-storage deals. Like wow. I knew I wasn't going to go out and build one on my own and not have any experience or have any idea how to do it. So I hired the best guy to do it, and that's true for our entire team. We got the best acquisitions team out there. We got a great negotiating staff. We got, site project managers that are amazing and have had decades of experience. So, it's about building a great team that and can trust can get their job done. And they should be way better at their job than you are. If you're the visionary and you're the owner, right? I don't want to be better than any of them.
Can you tell us a little bit about your first deal?
So it really started out this way. And this is great advice for anybody who wants to get started. Because people all the time are like, how do I get started in self-storage? Well, first of all, you have to have the guts and the belief that you can do it, right? Because if you don't believe you can build 100,000 square foot, you're not going to find the team. They're not going to come to you. You're not going to have that opportunity. But when we set out to make that change, I knew I wanted to build one. The first thing I did, and the first thing I recommend people do is look to your local engineers, look to your local attorneys, look to your local insurance guy and say, hey, who do you know that has land that could be developed as self-storage? Right. So I probably made 4 or 5 phone calls max before I got on the phone with one of my engineers and I told him what I was looking for. And he says to me, you know what? I got a piece of ground that's entitled as a senior care facility. I did the full design package on it 8 years ago. And what happened was right before closing, the licensee for the senior care center sold their license to the local hospital. So they had to back out of the deal. Well, here he had a contingent deal where he did all the engineering for all the approvals to get the variance approval for the senior care facility on a contingency basis, which means he doesn't get paid till closing. Mm-hmm. So he says to me, I got this outstanding bill that's 8 years old. And if you'll pay my old bill plus a little bit more, I'll go do a variance and I'll get that site approved for self-storage for you. So we were like, well, that's a no-brainer because it's basically an off-market deal that nobody even knows about. It wasn't even listed. And we went directly to the seller who he was friends with and said, hey, if we can put this deal together, we'll give you XYZ for the property, X amount for the property. And all we want you to do is be contingent upon the variance approval. Well, they're sitting there with a blank piece of ground that they had no intentions of developing for the last 8 years. So they had nothing to lose. Yeah. And it took us every bit of almost 2 years because right at the approval process, when we were like in the red zone, man, we were a yard away from scoring a touchdown. COVID hit and the world shut down.
Yep.
So, probably should have took 12 months to get that full approval entitlement, ended up taking 18 to 24 on our first deal. But that deal, I'm glad to say, is about 2 months away from being fully complete. And we already have a buyer for it.
Gee whiz, man, that's what you get for sticking with it. And maybe this is just a limiting belief of mine, but I would guess anybody, whether you're jumping into multifamily, you're jumping into self-storage, you're jumping into mobile home, it's like, you don't start out by developing. It seems like most people, like they get into, you're going to buy something that's already there. You're going to get really good at that. And then you're going to go, okay, now I'm going to step it up a notch. Yeah. I just feel like I've always thought like that's next level. That's the really big guys. I want to do that someday. And so maybe someday I'll build an apartment building, but seems incredibly risky. Yeah. So many hoops you have to jump through. What gave you the guts to do it? Or what made you think like, I'm going to go right into developing self-storage instead of buying some that are already there?
Well, first of all, when I'm done, maybe you're going to want to build self-storage. I don't know if you'll build a multifamily anytime soon, but here's the deal, Lee. Like when I got involved in it, I knew our unique ability was construction and I knew that was our background. I knew we could build, we'd build homes, we'd build apartments. I'd build other smaller commercial properties. I even came from the military building commercial-ish, bridges and runways and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So like I had that background. However, that being said, I would say to most anybody, there's always these components that are missing, right? Either you don't have the ability to get financed or be a KP on the deal, so you need banking. You don't have the background to understand the development side, and so maybe you need your hand held on that side. Maybe you don't have the ability to go raise the money in the private sector, and you don't know how to, do that side of things. But there's always somebody who can fill that gap, right? And so I always say, do you want 100% of the grape, or do you want 30% of the watermelon, right? We can get 30% of this watermelon. And let me tell you, 30% of a $20 million deal is a whole lot better than 100% ownership in 100 houses, in my opinion, especially when potentially it's a long-term hold and maybe it's going to cash you out for the rest of your life. Or you're going to make a windfall of cash because you sold the thing up front. But the bottom line is this: in development, I get to control the asset. I get to build what I want. I get to be the one who sets the bar for the competition in that local area. So I know that I can build a site that's going to be more competitive than the rest. The team that we've built, we have direct connections with the REITs like CubeSmart and Life Storage and Extra Space. We're talking directly with them and saying, hey, here's our feasibility study. What do you think? And would you want to manage this asset if I built it right here? So we're always getting a thumbs up from all these big players in the game. Why? Because they want to compete over the management agreement, right? They want to compete over first right of refusal to buy the deal. These guys are all trying to acquire deals at a high level. And so I can build something I can control. We only build Class A assets, 80 to 100,000 plus net rentable square foot. I do that because I want to be on the target and the sites of the big boys who are going to buy us out eventually, whether it's today or 15 years from now. So there's a lot of benefits to develop from ground up. Yes, it takes bigger guts. Yes, you have to, believe in yourself. Yes, you're going to have to come up with a good team that can do it. But I tell you right now, it's a lot easier than most people give it credit for.
I've talked to plenty of guys that I really respect that are in self-storage. And smarter than me. So I know it makes sense. I know it performed very well during the last downturn. It's still hard for me to get my mind around that it's so recession resistant.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Right.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
2021, best year in recorded history for self-storage. Okay. Lowest vacancy rate nationwide, highest cost per square foot nationwide. And over 10, don't quote me on this last one, but back in October, when this stat came out, there was already $9 billion in assets that had traded hands in 2021. So estimate that out to 12, because that was in month 9, right? So, this industry is so well insulated, it's almost recession bulletproof. If you look at it over the last 40 years of recorded history, and by the way, it's a pretty new industry, right? It's only really been recorded for 40 years. It's been around 50 or 60 years, but it wasn't really a commercial sector until 40 years ago. So they started recording this in the late 70s, early 80s. It's gone through every single one of our major recessions, the mid 80s, late 80s, the one, obviously 2007. And during that time, when you actually look at the growth curve, it's been a steady uptick. Like it never even bounced. Like they said in the heat of COVID, Public Storage released a quarterly fact that they lost 1% that quarter. And by the next quarter, it was back.
Wow.
Right? It just does not change. And so the reason for this, that I believe, there's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons I believe is, we haven't nearly saturated most markets in America with self-storage. Most people believe they drive down the road and they're like, storage, there's so much storage. Go try to find a 10 by 10 unit. Go try to rent a 10 by 30 unit. You're talking 95% plus occupancy in most cases in these storage units, which allows us to come in and build right next to them, be the competition, and still ramp up and fill a self-storage facility. Wow. The second thing I believe, Lee, is the vast demographic swing of who rents self-storage, right? You got your mom and pop upsizers, downsizers, moving houses, so on and so forth. But then you got contractors, you got retail storefronts, you got your attorneys and your insurance companies that have to keep records on file.
Wow.
Right? You got all of your little MLM businesses that have all their products. And they live in an apartment. And they need somewhere to keep their stuff that they're going to sell. Right. There's all these different things. So what happens is when the economy shifts and, construction goes down, right? Well, then the people who are downsizing their homes because they're going through short sale are also downsizing their homes and putting their stuff in storage. Right. The economy gets good and your contractors have extra materials and things are booming. Everybody needs room to store product. Right. Supply chain issues, all these other things. So there's constantly something balancing out the upside and the downside. And there's constantly tenants moving in and out. And so that's what I believe helps make it really, really recession proof. Along a myriad of other things that we could talk about, like RV and boat storage and, the adult, like like weekend toy industry is absolutely booming. People
Wow,
have more jet skis and quads and boats and RVs and stuff that they never had 2 years ago because they were going on vacation. Right?
Yes.
So there's just all these different dynamics that pump up the storage industry, and it makes it recession proof.
Yeah. Joe, tell me a little bit about how are things different for you today in that the business that you're running? I mean, you still have a team. I mean, you kind of mentioned, and I read in the bio, instead of doing 100 deals a year, you can do 10 and do much better. So how are things different? Maybe just for you within the business, but then maybe for you, with your family.
Yeah. I mean, I started, back long before I had this transition. I made a massive transition in my life to start to build businesses around my lifestyle and not the other way around. Right. Because our time is literally our life. When you give somebody an hour of your time, you're giving them an hour of your life. And I was missing my kids. I wasn't a great dad. I wasn't a great husband. I wasn't being good to myself. And so the self-storage change is a massive impact for, our lifestyle. Like, this business is something that every one of these guys owns, and I call them entrepreneurs, right? They own their seat, they own their role, they own their division. And, reality of it is they don't really need me to buy and sell self-storage. They're doing it on their own. And that's really the dream I've always had. That and having a culture of people I love doing business with. And so, we used to have 45, 50 employees. Now we're down to 10 to 15 at any given time. And I don't think we'll ever be more than 20. The goal is still to develop 10 a year. We've actually added a co-brand of that since then, which will probably triple the inventory, but it's basically shovel-ready storage where as we're building our pipeline of approved deals, we're actually working with other developers to sell them those deals for equity plus a fee. And so that's been really, really good. In just this year, we started closing deals like that, and that's been incredible.
Wow. Yeah.
But that's also allowing us to do more volume. Like again, at 30% of the watermelon, right? I can keep, some piece of equity in that JV deal, and I can help them get funding. I can help them get design. I can help them entitle the build, or I'm sorry, not entitle, but build the building. And so, now we're getting little pieces of deals all over the country, which is amazing. And of course we're adding value for that so that these guys can, get into a deal that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. And, maybe they use us for a deal 2, 3 till they figure it out on their own, which is totally fine. But, it gets us in the game on those deals and allows us to go develop our own separately.
Not having to feed the machine constantly and not being so transactional allows you to control your time a little bit better.
Yeah, really. I mean, I spend whatever time I want with my family. I take my kids to school every morning. I pick them up half the time. I take them to, my kids are both, I have 2 little girls, 9 and 12, and they're both in jujitsu with me. So
cool.
I take them to jujitsu, and it's, and whatever they need. If they need a daddy date, we go on it. We go to the movies. Last Friday I was at the movies during a work day. So it's like, being able to be available to them is super important to me, and always has been, but it became more of a priority, in the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, my one-on-one coaching is holistic. It's life and business. Okay. So, I mean, I have clients that run surgical practices. I have clients that run nationwide general contract. It's not all storage related, but those that are in storage in our mastermind group do get coaching directly from our team, live trainings every week. And I don't pigeonhole anybody into what we do. Obviously they can go out and do what we do based on our trainings. But, there are people who buy in mom and pops that are going to run them themselves for a couple of years, and they have land they can expand on down the road. There are people who do deals and get themselves equity just by finding the deal, just by finding the funding, just by finding. So we have what we call certified field agents inside of our mastermind. Which is a separate certification. They can join the mastermind, then actually get certified as a field agent to go find deals for other developers inside of that mastermind. Yeah. So my goal is to just create as much opportunity as humanly possible. And I tell people flat out, if we get involved physically and equity wise in 15, 20% of the transactions that happen in here, that's the byproduct, right? That's what I'm looking for. But the other 80 plus that are out there, do it on their own, take the learning, go out there, develop your own site, find your own site, do your own value add. All the training is here for you, and all the resources are here for you to do that.
That's awesome, man. It's good stuff. Yeah, Joe, I think I have a similar passion that, like, just commercial real estate, just investing in real estate, such a powerful vehicle, such a powerful tool where, you're not on a hamster wheel. You don't have to do a ton of transactions. You can do a few, you can do it right. You can build cash flow today. You can get paid today. There's an acquisition fee. There's cash flow today. But man, are you building some legacy wealth too, which is just very different. There's not a lot of ways to do this. Is that best place to send people, Joe? We'll put this in the show notes. Is that investwithlegacy.com?
Yeah, they can visit the website, and also I kind of created a special link for your guests as well. If they text the word threefold, no space, just like it's spelled in your on your podcast show notes behind you, threefold to 856-481-7795. We'll actually send them a free version of one of our master classes on self-storage that really talks about the transition, why I quit on my on my 978th home. And it just went cold turkey and turned around and went straight into self-storage. Talks about the industry. It's zero sales. There's no pitch. There's no anything. All we ask is that they fill out a survey at the end and give us some feedback about the training, but I'll give that to your guests for free today.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate that, man. We've also got storagesyndicate.com. I'm sure that's more just your company.
That takes them directly to the mastermind. Yeah. I mean, somebody who's in the storage game or wants to make that transition, obviously go to storagesyndicate.com and, you can either book a call with one of our director of education, or you could just sign up and get started. We have our first live virtual event is going to be June 29th and 30th of this year. So you definitely want to get involved before that happens, because we got some crazy good speakers coming.
Oh, that's awesome. Good stuff, man. Well, Joe, thank you for this. I was interested in your story. Really great story. I mean, I can identify with it on a tiny scale, but I'm really passionate about that as well. Just even being an entrepreneur and starting a business, you can still be on that hamster wheel and build a machine that you just got to keep feeding. It's not giving you the lifestyle that you want. I'm very passionate, like you are, about educating people on building a business that supports the lifestyle that you want for your family. And man, yeah, you kind of, you went to the school of hard knocks to learn that. And so I love that you're passing that on to others so they don't have to go that route. So they can jump right into, investing and entrepreneurship that builds a lifestyle that you want. So I always like to ask at the end, as we wrap up here, what would you say is the key ingredient that makes a successful real estate investor?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think number one is you just got to be not afraid to take action. Take action and solve problems. My investors, one of the favorite questions I get is like, what's the risk if we make an investment with you? And I'm like, life is a risk. Everything's a risk. The weather's a risk. The labor's a risk. The material supply chain's a risk. What you want to invest in is finding someone who's capable of solving problems. And that's all we do for a living every single day. We're building multi-million-dollar site. You want to invest in a team that's willing to take action and then solve problems. And so I would say that's the biggest resource I can give people is learn how to take action and solve problems along the way.
What's a key ingredient for, while having success in real estate or being an entrepreneur, what's a key ingredient to, while you're doing that and having success, maintaining your priorities and having, the time freedom and a successful life, with your faith and your family, things like that?
Yeah. Yeah, you're really talking about an entire session that I do call controlling the clock, right, Lee? And really the biggest challenge with most folks is they think that time freedom is like sitting on a beach with your feet up, drinking a margarita, watching the waves roll in. And the truth is, the people who actually think that way, they're like you and I. They couldn't do that for 48 hours. Right? Call me 2 days on a beach and I need something to do. Yeah. Real time freedom, as I mentioned earlier, is learning how to block and control everything in your life. And I mean, if you look at my calendar, I am blocked from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. tonight. Every 15 minutes, right? Yeah. Dinner with the family, a Bible study Thursday morning, whatever it is, you said, find time for your faith. Find time for your family, find time for your business, but it's called using a calendar, guys. And if you're an adult and you want to be profitable and successful in your life, you better learn how to use a calendar. Lee, I can't tell you how many 7-figure people I coach that can't get their time straight because they don't know how to use a calendar. Controlling your time is probably the one most important things that you can learn how to do.
I love it. Yeah. Something I've definitely grown in, and I hear it all the time, that time blocking. And if you're running a business and you're not doing that, I think you're crazy. But also, if you want to truly prioritize your faith, your family, like you got to be doing it as well. Cause you're right. I mean, if it's not on the schedule, a lot of times, guys like you and I, we're going to get up and start running. So if it's not in the schedule, we're going to do something else. I mean, I'm that way. If it's not blocked, I'm going to start working, and then I'm going to keep working until I have, something blocked out. What's a good book recommendation, Joe?
Multiplicity by Joe Evangelisti. And
okay.
All jokes aside, I think it's one of the best books I've ever read, and I would happily share it with your guests. In fact, anybody that texts us the threefold and then text me Multiplicity after that, I might send you a free book.
Okay. Awesome. No, appreciate that. Good stuff, man. Before I let you go, Joe, I always like to ask our guests, how might my listeners and I be praying for you in the coming weeks?
In the coming weeks?
Yep.
It's a great question, man. I mean, we got a huge deal closing on Friday. I'm confident it's going down, and I always just think like, how can I give back? How can I add value? So I think, pray for me to have the ability to go out there and do that.
Well, we'd be happy to pray for that for you, Joe. Cool, man. Well, hey, keep it up, man. Hopefully we send some people your way. You guys are doing some great things over there, and I wish you the best, man. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode. I hope you'll take action on what you've learned today. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving Lee a 5-star rating and review. And check him out on threefoldrei.com. Until next time, 1 Timothy 6:17.